And welcome, everybody. Welcome back to another UFC pay-per-view preview brought to you by thesportsdgens.com. This time we'll be previewing UFC 208 live at the Barclay Center in Brooklyn, New York. We'll be joined tonight by Dawk. You can find him on Twitter at @positive_vig. And a special guest. You might have seen him on Twitter, Wes Reynolds. You can find him on Twitter at Wes Reynolds. He won the Tout Master competition last year. If you don't know what that is, that's kind of a big deal. You kind of win, your MMA. So it's a pleasure to have Wes on here. Wes, thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, good to be with you guys.
And Doc, as always, it's a pleasure.
Definitely, man. Definitely. Thanks for coming on, Wes. I appreciate it.
No, not a problem.
Cool. Before we dive into this 208, which Doc and I have talked about a few times, at first look, didn't look the most appealing. It's not bad. But let's look at UFC Houston last weekend, a little before the Super Bowl. It had some fireworks. We'll start with the U.S. Korean Zombie showed up. What else took place that weekend? And besides that, if that's what you want to talk about, what highlights from the weekend did you want to talk about from UFC Houston?
Well, there were a couple of surprises. I mean, obviously, the first couple cards of the year have been very paint by numbers, favorite heavy, and it looked like it might kind of come to fruition for this fight because this show, because some of the fights that I think were made for the favorites to win. If you looked at the Grasso-Herrig fight, I think that was, really designed. I mean, they booked Alexa Grasso to look really good here. It's in Texas. She's from Mexico. They won a Mexican star, I think, in the female divisions in UFC. And, watching that fight, how unimpressive she looked. She just looked like she couldn't get off, and she couldn't, she doesn't really have a lot of power in her striking. It didn't look like to me. I mean, I think my expectations were a lot better for her. Not that Felice Herrig is a pushover, but you thought, okay, they're giving her someone she could beat, and she just never did anything. And I was very underwhelmed by that performance. The Ozdemir OSP fight probably wasn't a surprise, even though I didn't pick Ozdemir to win, because OSP seems to be a little bit on the way down. And they put this guy Ozdemir on the main card on FS1. He wasn't on Fight Pass or anything like that. So it seemed like they might have thought that they had something with Ozdemir, and OSP's just had, a couple losses. He had the loss to Manawa and, of course, the loss to John Jones. And, sometimes a fighter gets to a certain point and then he kind of plateaus. And I think maybe OSP did just that on Saturday night.
Yeah, we've talked about OSP in the past. Everyone thought he was going to be the next best thing, John Jones 2.0 or the next John Jones, whatever you want to say. And he, like you said, he might have plateaued. It might be the end. And he showed his true colors in that fight. Everyone, the heavy favorite, didn't do it. And you said it best. Going into that card, you could look all over Twitter. I even said it, and a lot of people said it. It was a chalky card. And when all things were said and done, it came out pretty, 50-50 doggy. Doc, and I know both of you guys like your doggies. Doc, what do you have to say about UFC Houston?
It was a great card, except for, OSP. Wes just kind of nailed it, man. He just kind of is starting to regress. And I could see him somewhat entering gatekeeper status. And Grasso, Wes again nailed it. It was completely underwhelming. She was very tentative with her striking. She just couldn't really put much together. Herrick just dominated that fight, man. I was like, maybe it was just a little bit too much too soon for Grasso, but I don't know. But I thought Korean Zombie looked great. It was a great card overall. Some pretty bad judging here and there, and we'll get into that in a minute. So that's what I think.
Yeah, well, let's step right into it. Doc, you wanted to talk about this, and it's kind of been an issue for a year or so now, and they tried to change it to more 10-8 rounds, or at least the option of 10-8 rounds, but the judging's been an issue. It's been ugly, and there's been a lot of odd rulings. I'll let you have the floor. You wanted to bring this up. Maybe we can go off what you want to start with. What did you want to talk about?
Well, it's just bad, man. Like the first event, Marcin Held got totally, just robbed. He took the loss against Joe Lozon, and even Lozon said, "I didn't win the fight." Right after the interview, when the other fighter says right after the fight that I didn't win the fight, that's pretty telling. And then the OSP decision was a little bit weird, although OSP probably maybe did, in some people's eyes, deserved to lose the fight. But then you got to look at which fight was it? It was I want to say oh man, I forget which fight it was. Maybe. Yeah, I think it was St. Preux St. Preux was the real bad decision. There was some other weird judging on it where, like, the one fighter was winning 30-27, but the other guy scored it for the other guy 29-28. It was just some weird judging, man, and I hope the UFC can do something to rectify it, man, but it almost makes you scared to bet some of these fights because you don't know what the judges are, and judges are thinking. It just reminds me of that one time when I bet Michael Johnson against Beneil Dariush. And I felt very confident that Johnson was going to win that fight. He won the fight, but for some reason, money was coming in on Dariush, and I couldn't get it. And then, sure as shit, they probably knew what the judges were all about, and they scored the fight for Dariush, which was one of the biggest robberies I've ever been involved in. It was just disgusting. So, I don't know.
Yeah, we were both on Johnson on that one. Wes, did you have anything to add to the odd judging we've been seeing lately?
Well, I mean, a couple of them. I mean, some of the fights have been kind of hard to judge. I mean, I actually did bet one earlier in the year. I believe I took Sterling over a Sunsao, and I don't think Sterling won the fight, but I don't know if a Sunsao clearly won the fight. And one of the things I like to see, and I know that they kind of frown upon this and they don't want to see this. I mean, to score a 10-10 round, it has to be like this awesome round where it's just back and forth. Sometimes somebody doesn't win a round, and you hate to reward by giving max points in a 10-point must system on a 10-10 round, but some rounds are even, and it's okay to call it an even round. I know they really frown upon that. I mean, the 10-point must system, I mean, it kind of is what it is. I mean, I don't want to say, hey, let's go to the old pride scoring system because that's so subjective. But they do. I like the idea behind that system where you're judging the whole of the fight, really, right. And the holistic approach. But it's so not transparent, and that's the problem with it, is because you look at the holistic of a fight, and I mean. And plus pride, maybe wasn't operated the most clean back in the day. And there were the guys that they wanted to win were going to more often than not get the decisions unless it was really obvious. So, But I do like the approach of being a little more holistic instead of maybe the boxing style rounds, because there's so many rounds that are so close or where there's just not much activity on either side. And plus, I'm a wrestling bias because I wrestled in high school, but sometimes you get a guy who gets kind of a takedown, almost like an attrition takedown, but really does nothing. And sometimes they just reward a guy for being on top when he's not having much activity, and don't reward the guy on the bottom going for submission attempts, or guys that are striking with elbows, or constantly trying to change positions and really doing a lot of more work where you get kind of those lay and pray guys that, when you're looking for a takedown, I'm looking to reward extra on that if I'm a judge, where he's trying to pass the guard, or he's trying to get in the side control, or he's trying to have ground and pound, or go for a submission attempt, or trying to improve his position from top position. And some of these judges just don't know how to score that.
Yep, I agree, Wes. I agree. And you know what? A good point you make. A good point, alluding to what you just said, Wes, is the fight with God, I forget his name all the time. Big Mac, Johnny Hendricks against Neil Magny. Hendricks did absolutely nothing.
That was horrible.
You're laughing, yeah. But no, Hendricks just laid there and did absolutely nothing, and Magny did everything from the bottom, and he won the fight. I thought Magny won the fight. Maybe I'm biased because I bet Magny, but it is what it is. But then again,
that fight card. Let me pull it up. I'm on the UFC site. Which card was that, real quick?
That was the last
that
UFC.
Was 207,
yes,
right?
207.
Because that card especially, there was 2 or 3 that were for a fact you got jobbed on 2 or 3, but I was against you on at least one of those, so I had to keep my mouth shut. But I remember Big Mac was one that we agreed on because Magny got absolutely shafted on that one. Or no, Magny won. Magny got the
Magny won. Magny won, yeah.
Magny won. Wasn't it?
There was one, guys. I think you might be thinking of the. It actually worked in my advantage on this one. The Dong Young Kim and Safadine fight.
Yes.
I remember that. I remember that.
Yes, because we had Safadine.
Yes.
Yes. Dawk and I had Safadine, and I was furious.
Yeah. Safadine had a 30-27 card, and I believe Dong Young Kim, which I got lucky on that fight, had 2 29-28s. And I was like, that's a pretty big discrepancy for 3 rounds.
Yep.
Huge.
And then the other one, I just pulled it up that I know Dawk was mad at, the no contest with Tim Means and Oliveira.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that was the one where they said the knee was on the ground.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, that card had some issues in it. But, there's a lot of issues, and it seems like it's never going to end as long as it's just commission by commission, state by state. It's not going to change.
Yeah, I agree.
But we could talk about that forever, but that's not why we're here. We're here to talk UFC 208 in Brooklyn. So let's talk about the Fight Pass prelims. There's 3 fights starting at 6:30 Eastern, 3:30 Pacific. We start with Rick the Gladiator Glenn, 18-4-1, going up against a former UFC Ultimate Fighter, Philippe the Filipino Assassin, over 12-7-1. We'll let Wes start us off on this one.
Yeah, this is actually would be a tough fight for me, because it seems like if you're looking at Nover after he got let go from UFC and then had come back, he got a win and then got a tough split decision loss on the Page and Thug Rose card, and then they kind of put him in there against Barao on short notice, and he got beat. So I think Barao to Glenn is a step down in class, and usually I like to take a guy that's taken a step down in class. I almost look at it like horse racing, when you got a horse that's racing against a bunch of grade 1s, and then all of a sudden they go back and cut to kind of the regular, like, special weight type races, or kind of in allowance races, and they drop for a tag. So that kind of applies to Nover here, but this looks like, if Nover loses this fight, he's going to receive his walking papers, being that, he's lost 2 in a row. Granted, one was against Barao, where he's probably overmatched in class there, but I haven't bet this fight. If I were to do it, I would lean to Nover, simply because I do think that this is a little bit of a drop in class, and he kind of knows his gig is on the line here. You guys might have more insight to Rick Glenn than I do, but my lean, I guess, early on in the week, because I usually wait for weigh-ins to really place a lot of the wagers and do my top master picks and stuff. But initial lean for me would be to Nover at about I think he's about a plus 170 for the most part across the board.
Yeah. Doc, what are you looking at on this one?
I thought Rick Glenn against Evan Dunham. I thought he was thoroughly outclassed, but he showed a lot of heart. He really hung tough against Dunham, but I would agree with Wes here that Nover's the only site I can look at, mainly because you're getting plus 170 on a guy that's lost 2 in a row. And yeah, like Wes said, if he loses another, he's probably cut. So I would only have to side with Nover here, because I think Nover's equal to, if not the better all around fighter than Glenn. So Nover's the only way I could look.
Yeah, this is a fight you should probably just pass. But if you have to take a gun to your head, it's an over plus 160 to 70, whatever you get. Glenn's biggest weakness is get to the ground. He's going to get submitted, and that's what Nover does at his best. So as long as Nover doesn't stand and try to bang, like would be foolish, because Glenn will knock you out. That's pretty much the two. It's just the lesser of two evils in this fight. So if Nover just uses his game plan and gets to the ground, he's got a great chance to win and becomes a very live dog in this fight. So that's where he's at, but there's better fights to bet on this card. That'll take us to Ryan LaFleur, 12-1, going up against Roan. Oh, Wes, if you didn't know, I love to butcher names on these cards. Roan Juco Carnero, 21-10, fighting the 170-pound division. Currently, we are looking at – we got who? LaFleur across the board, anywhere between minus 270 to minus 300 to Carnero's plus 230 to 250. I'll let Doc start us off on this one.
No real interest in betting this fight, but if I had to bet it, I would put LaFleur in a parlay. I think it's a good parlay piece. I don't see LaFleur losing this fight. LaFleur is just going to out-wrestle Carnero. Carnero has decent striking, but I just see LaFleur just kind of grinding out a win here unanimously, just by out-wrestling him, just going to ground and pound him. And, that's the only way I can see this fight. I think LaFleur's the better all-around fighter here. I only look at LaFleur, but I'm not laying at 265. So and he's a nice parlay piece, but, that's about it for me.
What would you like to add to that one, Wes?
Well, ditto for me in terms of that. And LaFleur, the one reason I think people are kind of reluctant to bet him straight, he has not fought since December of 2015. He was on the tough finale, I believe, at the end of that year. So, it's tough to take a guy on that long of a layoff. And, LaFleur might be I think would definitely be a parlay piece, but not something I would necessarily be fully confident laying 275 on this one.
Sounds good to me. Parlay piece it is with LaFleur. We're moving on to the final fight of the Fight Pass prelims in the heavyweight division. Marcin Tybura against fill-in for the injured Henrique. We have Justin Big Pretty Willis, and you better be able to fight with a nickname like Big Pretty. He's 4-1, and he can knock you out. He's, like I said, filling in on short notice. There's lines not open everywhere, but where you can find him, he's about a minus 130 favorite over Tybura. Wes, we'll let you kick this one off.
Yeah, actually, I don't on my line screen that has all the lines. I didn't actually see a lineup on this one, but with a short notice guy, sometimes there's a little bit of value on the short notice guy because the guy hasn't been training for him. So it's a completely different kind of fight. Reluctant to really give out an opinion here, but I think what you said, Brian, about Willis there is pretty much on point there. So, I mean, I think you might get a little bit of value there because people don't know who he is. So that would be probably where I go. I want to look to see what the price is, kind of see what maybe some of the initial lean in the market is, and then go from there.
Yeah, I'll let Dawk say something here in a minute, but on short notice fights, most times I'm hesitant, but on a heavyweight fight where these guys usually aren't going too long, I like a short notice fighter because they're just going to hang and bang. And if you haven't been able to prepare for one of these boys, I like that advantage a lot. So, Doc, what do you have to say on this one?
Yeah, I'm really kind of hesitant taking a guy that's making his UFC debut on short notice. But from what I've heard about this guy, I've watched one fight, and he's pretty nasty. Once he gets you down to the ground, he can hold you down. He's got a good top game, and I guess he's a former football player from San Jose State, I believe,
Yes.
if my memory serves me correct. But yeah, the fact that this short notice, I know Tabura is a pretty decent kickboxer. From what I hear, he has got some okay jiu-jitsu, but from what I hear, this guy Willis is he's pretty gnarly, man. So Willis is the only way I'd look. I have not bet this fight, but Willis is the only way I would look.
Yeah, no, I haven't put anything down, but Willis is a very intriguing piece at that price. Very intriguing. That'll take us to the prelims on FS1, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. Starting off in the flyweight division with the number 6 flyweight, Ian Uncle Creepy McCall. If he makes it to the fight, he tends to not show up. 13-5-1 against Jared, the Monkey God Brooks, 12-0, making his UFC debut. I believe he's moving up in weight class also. Usually fights at 115, I believe. Or he's moving down. I believe he's moving up. Doc, kick us off in the FS1 prelims.
Brooks is a Indiana guy, so Wes might know about him. McCall has not been in the octagon in 2 years, and that's because of injury, being sick, hard luck, whatever. If McCall was totally 100% healthy, I think he'd win this fight. But Brooks is one of those guys that he can take you down. He's a great wrestler. He's got some sneaky striking. He's just one of those guys that can just kind of wear on you a little bit. And with the mindset of McCall, I don't know where he is mentally. I know Brooks is making his UFC debut, and I think the line's very telling. I would only look at Brooks here.
Yeah, Wes, what would you have to tell about this fight? You know anything about Brooks?
I actually do not. But I think the analysis from Dawk is dead on here. It's tough to take Ian McCall here, even though he's probably the better and the more experienced fighter. But this guy has had so many fights called off. Hasn't fought since he fought Lineker in January 2015. He was supposed to fight Dustin Ortiz. He had to pull out of the fight. Scoggins, and then he was supposed to fight Justin Scoggins. Scoggins isn't going to make weight, so McCall, I think, still got paid to show money, and then he was supposed to fight Ray Borg. Ray Borg pulled out of the fight. Then he was supposed to fight Neil Seary in November at one of the fight night shows. McCall got pulled from the fight for some, I forget even the reason, but, there's probably going to be an adrenaline dump, you would think, from McCall, being that he hasn't fought in forever. He's going to be really excited and really jacked up to fight, but that might work against him. And I think Brooks would be the way I would probably look here, because I think McCall's probably going to come out there right away, kind of hellfire and brimstone, but then eventually if he doesn't take the guy out, then it's like, man, did he empty the gas tank a little early? And I could just kind of see that happening here. and then Brooks being a good wrestler, just kind of grinding out a decision here.
You guys basically just nailed everything I mentioned to Dawk prior to this recording. I feel that McCall, he is definitely the more experienced fighter, but Brooks, he's unbeaten. He is making his UFC debut, but McCall, to me, has kind of – he is the flyweight version of OSP to me. He has peaked, and being out of the octagon for 2 years isn't going to help. I think it's Brooks' turn to get his first UFC win in his debut. McCall is – I think he will gas. You said that very well. He's going to come out guns blazing. That's his fight style. He's going to come at you, fast-paced, explosive, but not fighting in that long of a period. Is he ready to keep that pace? And Brooks will smother you. He will wrestle you, and he'll take advantage of that in a 3-round decision. I like Brooks. The line is very telling, given people MMA lines are some of the goofiest lines you'll ever see. But if you want to believe them, it opened Brooks plus 116, McCall minus 144. Now they're basically both minus 110, so take that for what it's worth. Moving on, we have a battle in the 155 lightweight division. Nick the Carney Lentz, 29-7-2, going up against Islam Makhachev, 13-1 out of Russia. Trains with Khabib. The kid's good, really, really good. So good. He's a heavy, heavy favorite over Lentz. He's about a minus 300 favorite, give or take, over Lentz. Wes, kick us off on this fight.
Well, Lentz isn't the most aesthetically pleasing fighter, obviously. And I mean, there has been a lot of comments on that. I mean, he's gotten some quality wins, and he's a very good wrestler. He is what I would call a very good wrestler, but I think Makhachev may be more of an excellent wrestler. And I will take excellent over very good every time. And I think this is a fight it's one of those where I think it's booked to get the prospect, the Khabib training partner here a win. And you've kind of seen, I think this opened somewhere around 180, 190, and it's almost at 300. So it could only be a parlay piece, or maybe like an inside the distance, or if you want to go points by a decision. I could only see this being, if it goes to a decision, as a unanimous decision, as a 30-27 almost across the board, with maybe 129-28. But Makhachev will definitely be the way I go in that particular fight.
Yeah, no, that makes tons of sense. Doc, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, I would really like to make a case for Nick Lentz here, but Lentz has very, very good takedown defense, but Makhachev is on a different level. But you do take a look at Makhachev's wins in the UFC, and I mean, he's got 2 decent wins, and then he's been knocked out. And that's what makes me hesitant about that. And Lentz has some power. If Makhachev can't get Lentz down, what's he going to do? What's the path to victory here? That's my only reservation for this fight. So if anything, for me, I'm going to pass. But if I had to bet this fight, I would put a small play on Lentz. That's the way I'd go.
And there's
I totally get why people would like Makhachev, and I totally get it. But Lentz, I think this line is stupid. 180, yeah. 290, no. I don't get it.
Probably like 225 or 230 would be the most fair line here.
Yeah, I almost a 300 favorite. Come on, man. That's some disrespect to Lentz, in my opinion. I mean, these fighters know how big of a dog they are, and you're gonna get motherfucking Nick Lentz in there, knowing he's that big of a dog. Well, we'll see. We'll see. I cannot. Man, that's crazy, dude. That's crazy. Almost a 300 favorite over Nick Lentz. I don't know, and Makhachev is not He's a great wrestler. He's an outstanding wrestler. I get it, but his wins, he's 2-1 in the UFC. I mean, he's been knocked out before, so I'd have to side with Lynch. That's the only way I'd look at it.
And there's the doggy action from Dawk. Here we go. Here we go. All right. It's getting interesting now. Moving on. Another fight in the flyweight division. Somehow we have a number 6 flyweight fighting a newcomer, and now we have a number 5 flyweight. Wilson Reese fighting Ulka Sasaki. Reese 21-6, Sasaki 19-3-2. Reese opened up as a minus 335 favorite. He's all the way up to minus 550 to minus 600. So another big jump in odds. It seems like one way to go. He's 2 ground guys again, both submission guys. Dawk, we'll let you kick this one off.
All right, I only have one thing to say. Don't bet this fight. Don't touch it. Just stay away from it. Don't bet it.
Perfect. Wes, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, this will be if you're in the Tout Master. Maybe you kind of use this as your free square. Like if you're in a pick 4 in horse racing or a pick 6, where you take the 1 to 5 chalk and just use that as your free square as your single.
Yeah,
that's kind of what this seems to be. So it'll be a Tout Master pick. It definitely won't be a bet because I could see maybe 5% of the field taking Sasaki if guys are way back like I am, just taking a shot. But man, I don't know. Maybe I'll just take the free point.
So that was like my Blades. That's like Blades last week.
Yeah, exactly.
After Grasso effed me in the Tout Master, I might be on Sasaki.
It's too early for hell. It's too early for Hail Marys.
I know.
Yeah, it is. Like I thought I was dead the first month. I mean, I was like going 500 on every card, or even having losing cards, and then all of a sudden it just shakes out. But now there's more people in the field this year, so now it's just like, hey, if I place, I'm kind of happy because there's a lot more people in it, and the pool's bigger. So,
yeah, agree.
It's going to be a blast. It's a ton of fun. I'm glad Doc reminded me to get in on it. It's a blast every week, and just watching that stuff calculate. It's awesome.
It's pretty cool.
I'm already a UFC degenerate anyways. I might as well play it. All right, the final prelim card of the night. Randy Rude Boy Brown, 9-1, did not make the Jamaican bobsled team. He is fighting in the UFC. Bilal, remember the name, Muhammad, 10-2. I know Doc really likes this fight. He's been talking about it, texting about it, probably dreaming about it. I'll let Doc start it off. Doc, what do you got?
Man, I just bet Randy Brown. He was at minus 110, minus 120 around there, and he just went up to 130. But we were actually talking about 205. I remember, Bubba, we were in New York, and we were doing the pod, and I said how much of a chin Bilal Muhammad had and how tough he was.
Night.
Not that night, and that quick of a turnaround from getting knocked out like that, and now you got to face Randy Brown. That's not good, man. That is not good. Randy Brown, I think, is going to knock this guy out in the second round or so. I don't think Bilal is going to be able to close the distance. He's not going to be able to take Brown down. Brown's improving fight by fight. His striking's getting better. His wrestling's getting better. Everything about him is getting better. Every facet of his game. Muhammad, this is just too soon of a fight for him after getting just knocked the fuck out by Luque. So I like Randy Brown. I like him a lot. I just bet him Randy Brown.
Yeah, the biggest part about that is there's another fighter on this card that we're going to get to. The short comeback after a knockout like that. The UFC, I know they say they follow all the protocol, but there's something that's just not right with I don't think this is right. Maybe he'll prove us wrong, but it doesn't seem right. Wes, what do you got on this fight?
Well, I think this is a fight, and I'm actually looking at the odds, and it looks like more of the money, at least on my screen. I don't know how accurate it is. They're saying like 52% is on Muhammad, but yet the line is going up on Randy Brown. One thing to remember about Brown here is that he was part of that Dana White looking for a fight series. So I think, you know, I know that back in the day with the Ultimate Fighter, there was temptation for Ultimate Fighter winners to get overvalued. Like the one that obviously comes to my mind is Amir Sadala, how he would get kind of overvalued in his fights and would lose. But I think that they want this show, this Dana White thing, since it's his name really attached to it. You know, Dana White presents looking for a fight, that they want this show to be over. You know, that they want this, you know, more people and even more casual people that aren't the hardcores that watch every single piece of UFC programming that's ever on Fox or ever on Fight Pass or wherever. You know, I think they want this show to get over. So I think that this is a fight that they would like to see. I know they want to say that they're fair, the matchmakers, but sometimes they'll make matches where they really want a guy to get a win. And I think that this is one of those fights with Brown. I think they'd like to see this guy get a win. They like him at least as a prospect. I don't know if they think he's going to eventually be a title contender or challenger, but they like having him on the shows. And I think, you know, like him as a prospect. So that'd be the way I'd go as well.
Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead, Dawk.
No, that's a very good point, Wes. Very good point. You look at Muhammad, his last 3 fights in July of 2016, he was in a war with Alan Jouban, took a ton of punishment there. The next fight against Montano, took a ton of punishment there, running round 3, and then he got knocked the fuck out by Luque. And now you got a quick turnaround against Randy Brown. Like that's not good. Not good.
Not good at all. And I believe also, like you said, they're looking for a fight. Brown's a local kid, I believe. So you put, I believe, if I'm right, Wes, he's from the New York, New Jersey area.
Yeah, he is. I've actually got the roster of the show in front of me. He lives in Queens. He's from Springfield, Massachusetts, originally, and then obviously moved to Jamaica with his mother as a kid. So, you know, I think this is a guy, they try to fill as many locals on the show or guys from the same region. I remember, you know, when a fight would come to Indianapolis, where I'm based, they would try to have a bunch of Indiana guys or Ohio guys or Illinois guys, you know, on the show that have some kind of regional following at least. So, yeah, Brown to me is the way to go here.
Yep, Brown for the KO action. I like it a lot. That'll lead us in to the main card, the pay-per-view, UFC 208, 10 Eastern, 7 Pacific. Kick it off with a blast from the past. Dustin, the Diamond Poirier, number 10 in the lightweight division, taking on Jim Miller. Poirier 20-5, Miller 28-8. Poirier opened up as a -184 favorite. We're sensing a trend here, folks, up to -450 across the board. Wow, how things have changed. That's insane. Doc and I were talking about this fight earlier. Wes, kick us off on this one. Poirier, Miller.
Man, I almost wonder if this line movement is telling me something. We talked about regional fighters. Jim Miller is a New Jersey guy, and he's actually off 3 straight wins over. He won. He was 3-1 in his fights last calendar year. He fought 4 times. For a guy that's his age and got some tread on the tires. I mean, he's only 33, but you know he's got 36 fights, and he lost to Diego in a unanimous decision, but then he knocked out Gomi. He got a split decision over Joe Lozon, which was a terrific fight. And then he beat Thiago Alves. Granted, Alves missed weight, and it was a catch weight. So Alves was probably, you know, feeling like crap going into that fight. But, you know, this is a guy that has won 3 straight fights. And to be that big of a dog, it's almost like he's gotten old overnight. And I mean, I'm not saying Poirier is not the rightful favorite here, but I mean, I for sure couldn't bet Poirier off that big of a line move, because I think I actually think Miller has fought probably the better name competition. I don't know if it's necessarily the better fighters at this point, because those guys, those guys are a lot older. Those guys aren't prospects on the come. All those guys he's beaten have probably seen their better days. Poirier comes off that knockout over Michael Johnson, but did put together a really good win streak after losing to Conor, and moved up. And then all of a sudden, I think, when you move a guy up to a certain level, he's on a win streak, and people are tend to go with the hot fighter, and Michael Johnson just took him out in pretty vicious fashion. But I think Poirier is the rightful favorite, and that line move is telling me something, and I think he wins the fight. I don't know if it would be something I would bet. Maybe you put it as a parlay filler, or maybe you put it, you try to play kind of the prop route in terms of points or by a finish here, but it's not something I would lay the price, obviously, as a straight bet here, because Miller is a capable guy, and Miller's a terrific wrestler. And sometimes one thing that I do, it doesn't always work, but it's almost like, when in doubt, go with the wrestler. But it's awful tough, I think, to do that in this situation.
Yeah, this line movement's bizarre. It's like, is Miller hurt and we just don't know it? Is he coming in and going to miss weight and not fight? What's going on? Doc, what are you seeing on this fight?
Yeah, man. I really want to take Miller. I really do. I think that Wes brought up a lot of good points with the fact that he's strung along a couple of wins and he's looked pretty good. But I think the only way he wins this fight is on the ground. I don't think he can stand there and strike with Poirier. I'm not going to bet the fight, but if I had to, you know where I'd go. I'd take Miller. But I'm not betting the fight. I'm not taking it.
Yeah,
I'm not doing anything with it.
The line's too ludicrous to put any money on, like Wes said, and you said. You can't put that kind of line on Poirier. Poirier's the favorite for a reason, but Miller's only winning on the ground most likely. You going to roll the dice on that? No, but if the quote-unquote value is there, the value's there. But, yeah, it's tough to put the money down.
I just man, Miller's just one of those guys. He's just – man, he's hometown. When everybody counts him out, he always steps up. But, yeah, that line movement is really, really concerning. But then again, we've seen it before, and we've seen the dog cash. So, man, it's tough. It's a tough call. But, yeah, Wes brings up a lot of good points. For me, this is just an unbettable fight. But you know what? Come Friday after I see the weigh-ins and something just looks funny, I might just go ahead and bet Miller. I don't know yet.
And if you want to start getting conspiracy theories, hometown judges maybe, who knows?
Yeah, that's true.
Moving on. In the light heavyweight division, the number 3 light heavyweight Glover Teixeira, 25-5, going up against the number 15 light heavyweight Jared the Killer Gorilla Cannonier. Goddamn, I butchered that one. Teixeira, about a -190 favorite against Cannonier. This is a really intriguing fight. You got to like Teixeira a bit, but at the same time, we're going to go with Jared on this one. It is kind of live a little bit. Doc, lead us off on this one.
Man, this is really, really tough. This is really, really tough call, man. This is a big step up for Cannonier. Huge. Yeah. But then again, Teixeira's coming off the knockout loss to Rumble. God.
The tread on those players.
Yeah, I just don't know if Glover gets hit and Cannonier throws some bombs. I just don't know if he's the class. I mean, if this goes to the ground, this is game, set, match. I mean, Teixeira is much better on the ground. This guy's a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So the path to victory for Teixeira, there's more paths to victory for Teixeira than Cannonier. I'm not betting the fight. I'd like to make a case for Cannonier, but I just can't. I can't right now. I think this is just too big of a step up for him.
Yeah, what are you thinking on this one, Wes?
This was actually probably one of, if not the toughest fight on the show for me, because I think that they see something in Cannonier and they like the guy as a prospect. And he is actually was born in Dallas. He fights out of Alaska, the killer gorilla here. They like him. They like him as a prospect, and he's gotten 2 straight wins, a performance of the night over Cyril Asker, and then the fight of the night win at the tough finale over, I'm going to butcher this name, Ian Kutalaba.
Kutalaba, yeah. Kutalaba.
Yeah, I think that's his
That was
name.
A good fight, too.
Yeah, it was a really good fight. And but this is a big step up in class. I mean, this is fighting, you're fighting. It's like you break your maiden, and now you're in a graded race, a graded 3 or a graded 2 horse race, and you're fighting a top contender here. Teixeira is kind of local here too. He actually lives in Connecticut, in Danbury. So this is another one of those local fighters. He's off a bad knockout loss to Rumble. A very quick loss, but before that he had wins over Rashad, win over Patrick Cummins, win over OSP. So Teixeira has fought the best of the best in the light heavyweight division, and I think Cannonier, I think, is a guy I want to bet, because I think they want to boost him as a prospect, and they would like him to kind of go over here, but that's tough for me. That's a tough sell for me, I think, right now. I think he probably needed another fight or 2 before he went to a top 5 guy in the division. So I would probably go with Glover here.
Yeah, no, that's a great breakdown there. I like Cannonier a lot. I think the kid's up and coming, hands of stones. But if he goes to the ground, like Dawk said, he's screwed. It's over. I would have loved to have seen Cannonier face like a Bader.
Yeah, but Bader's in Bellator now.
Yeah, who they just let go.
But like that caliber, go fight one of those and then move up to a Glover. But he's tempting to play because all the wear and tear on Glover and the way Rumble knocked him out. But Rumble, he's different than everybody. But once that chin goes, like we've talked about many times, is Glover's chin gone? Is what I'm trying to say, or is it not? We don't know.
Yeah,
we'll find out. We'll find out. But if it's not, then Glover's going to take this one to the ground. It's over. But if it is, and Cannonier's making that next step. But it's one's gonna be great to watch. Great to find out. The next fight on the card is one, when I saw it announced, I thought it was an April Fool's joke, but it was announced in like November, so it couldn't have been. We have in the 185 division, the number 3, 185, Ronaldo Jacare Souza, 23-4, going up against the number 13, Tim the Barbarian Bosch. Jacare opened up minus 719, has since dropped down to minus 500. Wes, kick us off, please.
This is almost a fight, and I have a little bit of a soft spot for the Barbarian because I've hit on him a couple times over the years as a big underdog, and the dude does have some power, and he's not a bad wrestler, but this almost seems like a fight that got made because they didn't have anybody really ready for Jacare. Yep. And he's right outside that world title contention at 185. They're doing the Bisping Romero fight. And
Rockhold's injured.
Yeah, Rockhold's hurt. So it's like they almost had nothing for Jacare, and he kind of wanted to stay active.
Yep, makes sense.
So this is kind of, it looks like, giving him a fight to stay active, because he hadn't fought in May since he fought Vitor Belfort, and obviously he's not going to fight Vitor again, who I believe is fighting Gastelum. I think in a month or two. I'm trying to remember all these matches that get made, but
You're right.
Yoel Romero's got the title shot, so Yoel Romero is obviously not going to fight Jacare and jeopardize that. And they're just Jacare's beaten Masasi and beaten a couple of these guys, so it's like you don't necessarily want to do a rematch, and you want to do a fresh matchup. He's beaten Brunson, who of course is fighting on this show. So I think that this is just kind of a fight to kind of keep Jacare active, give him a fight where he's not really in jeopardy of losing, and he stays kind of right where he is, and you've got him right there, and you could say he's coming off a win streak or whatever. He's coming off a big win over Bosch, if that's necessarily considered a big win, and then of course the win over Belfort. And Jacare's only lost once inside the UFC octagon, losing to Romero. I mean, he had lost to Masasi, but in Dream, but beat him in Strikeforce, I believe. So, I'm guessing this is kind of a placeholder until Rockhold gets healthy, and then maybe that's a #1 contenders match for whoever wins out of Bisping and Yoel Romero.
No, that makes a ton of sense when you describe it like that, because like I said, when I first saw this, I'm like, are you kidding me? But yeah, the man of God, if you have not seen him, Yoel Romero, when he's not doing the Nazi salute from knocking someone out, he has created a GoFundMe account for Michael Bisping's future medical expenses, because he is one of the greatest human beings alive, and that British man is going to need them if they don't sew his mouth shut from the damage that will happen in their fight. But yeah, Luke Rockhold's banged up. It makes sense, because why would Jacare want to risk his #1 contendership at potentially losing? And not that Bosch can't win, but we know what should happen in this fight. Doc, what do you got?
Yeah, everything that Wes said, I agree 100% with. This is just a made fight for him. All I really have to say is I can't wait for Yoel Romero to destroy Michael Bisping. I cannot wait. Yep. I can't wait.
Yeah.
But but this fight, I wouldn't touch it. I wouldn't bother. Jacare should handle him within a round or two.
Yeah, if you're absolutely desperate to put a -500 in a parlay for some odd reason, that's about where you're going. But that's not really it's not going to help your parlay out a ton unless you really need like that 12th piece in your parlay. Go for it. That's about it. Moving on to the co-main event of the evening. This is going to be a good one. Doc's already put this play in because the line's moving, folks. Another fight in the 185 division. The #7, Anderson, the Spider Silva, 33-8, get the full camp this time. Going up against #8, Derek Brunson, 16-4. The fight opened at Brunson 124. It's up to 155 or 145 actually. So you can get Silva 120-ish to 130 depending on where you shop. Doc, I know how excited you are for this fight. Kick us off.
Yeah, another guy that's coming back from a knockout too early, in my opinion. I think this fight's kind of somewhat tailor-made for Anderson to win. I think it's lined where it is because Anderson Silva hasn't won a fight since 2012. But Brunson is he's got some power. He's got some decent wrestling, but I don't think he's got the skill set to take Anderson down. I think he's going to leave that chin wide open against one of the best counter strikers in all of MMA. And I think Anderson clips him and knocks him out.
Not bad. Wes, what do you got on this fight?
Yeah, this is a tough fight for me too, because I don't like Brunson coming back. I actually thought he was going to beat Robert Whittaker, and felt like it. It's one of those ones where you feel good about it, and then you feel like an idiot once the fight takes place. I actually thought Brunson was going to win that fight, and I kind of bought in, I guess, to the hype behind him. But I think Anderson Silva. It's been interesting. He's been talking about comments, and talking in the press like he's not ready to retire, and
Nope.
that he's not even close to retirement. He feels like he can still get to the top in this division. He lost that decision to Bisping, and I took Bisping, and I thought Bisping won the fight. It was maybe barely. And I felt Bisping was kind of going to get the benefit of the doubt from the judges there anyway. But if you look at what Silva's done since then, he was a last-minute replacement for Cormier. He wasn't. He looked physically good, but, he wasn't really in fighting shape, and he wasn't, it was a last minute thing that they tried to do to kind of help have a support fight to save the show once you lost John Jones from the card. And that's one of the biggest cards of the year. Brunson, man, he's a really good athlete, and he's beaten other good athletes. He's beaten Lorenz Larkin and beaten Uriah Hall, and those are good wins, and both athletic guys, especially Larkin, who I always really was high on in Strikeforce. But I just, he's coming back. I just think, he just fought in November, just fought like 2 days after Thanksgiving. And it's the second week of February. And to come back this early, I think Silva is going to get most of the action because he's Anderson Silva, and he's getting a plus price. But it's tough for me to back Brunson here, and it's also tough for me to back Anderson Silva, even though I think Dawk makes a really good case for him here. And the fact that he seems like he's still pretty excited about fighting. And Anderson Silva, to me, is the type of guy that I think he's cognizant of his legacy. I don't necessarily think he's going to stay around and just be gatekeeper for young guys and just put young guys over. I think eventually he'll step away if it's getting to that level where it'll be like, you know what, I was the most dominant fighter in the sport for like 5 or 6 years. And, I'm a surefire Hall of Famer. I'm one of the best arguably to ever do this game, so I don't think he wants to stick around and just put young guys over. I don't think he necessarily needs the money. So I guess he's out here because he thinks he can still win at the top level and be a top guy at the 185-pound division. So Dawk is kind of talking me into maybe more thinking Anderson Silva when, it's almost like when in doubt, I go with the younger guy that's hungrier. But he's got me thinking Anderson here. I haven't decided what I'm going to do with this yet. But it looks like the action's on Silva. The line's kind of moving up on Brunson, but so I've got some more thinking to do on this fight. And Dawk made a great case for Anderson here.
Yep, Wes, don't give Dawk your phone number, because he does these things. He finds fights like a week or two out, and he will convince you to take somebody. He's given me a case. He texted me, was it Monday morning, Doc? All of a sudden, I wake, because Doc's in Massachusetts. I'm in California. So I wake up to a text that Doc probably sent me at 3 o'clock my time in the morning. All it says is Silva's a dog. So I'm waking up going, what the hell is this? Like, I have no idea. Because Doc and I text about all kinds of things. And I literally tell Doc, I haven't had my coffee. What is this, Doc? and then we have about an hour-long conversation about how ludicrous this line is. And Doc, he talked me into Silva. And I completely agree with it. Brunson's back too early. If he can't get him to the ground, I think he's done. He doesn't really have a chin. Silva proved he can fight on the ground against Cormier, because all Cormier did, in my opinion, is dry humped him for the fight, which smart on Cormier's part. He didn't want to lose. But you saw in that fight on 3 days' notice, essentially, he was in shape. when they stood up, he took it to Cormier, especially late in that fight. I thought he looked great.
He did. Yes, he did.
Yeah, Cormier was going for takedowns for sure.
Yeah, because when they stood up, especially in that final round, Silva was taking it to him. If they would have had one more round, I think Cormier was in serious trouble. And like you said also, Wes, Silva knows his legacy. He's not going to play gatekeeper. He signed that big contract for a reason. He's going to fight while he can. And when he can't fight anymore, he will walk away. So I like Silva a lot, especially at that value. We talk value a lot. And like I said, MMA lines aren't what, other sports lines are. But in my opinion, this is value. In a fight that should be more like the McCall-Brooks line, this is value.
Yep.
So give me Silva. I'll take Silva in this fight. That takes us to the main event, the first ever women's featherweight title fight, 145-pound women's fight that somehow does not feature the best women's featherweight fighter to ever fight in this world. Cyborg is not here, given if steroids or not. Holly, the preacher's daughter, home 10-2 against Jermaine, the Iron Lady, De Randamie, 6-3. Home, the slight dog she's down to like plus 105 now. She opened up the heavy favorite at minus 126. Randamie is now minus 125. So they basically flip-flopped. Wes, kick us off on the main event in the women's featherweight title.
Yeah, I think Holly Holm is the dog actually for fairly good reason here. In looking at some of the press leaning up to this fight, it doesn't really look like Holly Holm's all that infused. She kind of got put into this fight at featherweight because they wanted to create a featherweight title. I mean, because Chris Cyborg was not going to be able to make that weight by February, and UFC apparently and the matchmakers, bookers were bound and determined to have another title. And I think they would rather Holly Holm have that title than de Randamie. But de Randamie has been doing a lot of media here, and she's actually, because she's a foreign fighter, they kind of almost look past her a little bit. But she's actually, come off, I think, very well in the press here and done very well in media availability. And I think that stuff matters. And sometimes when, we're looking at betting these fights, we kind of don't look at the business side of things and maybe, is this fighter capable, besides what the fighter can do in the cage, is this fighter capable of being a champion? Is this fighter capable of doing appearances and doing media and making, kind of a nice acquittal or a nice showing, I guess, acquittal, not the right word, but showing of his or herself. I just don't know how excited Holly Holm is. I mean, to go from beating Ronda Rousey and pulling off arguably one of the biggest upsets in UFC history and really exposing Ronda Rousey, who was unstoppable at that point, and then losing to Misha on the ground, and then losing to Shevchenko back in Chicago last summer. I want to know how excited Holly Holm is for this fight, because she was somebody that was, I think, very comfortable as a counter striker against Rousey, who Rousey kind of only knows one way to go, and that's to go forward. And, of the thing about Rousey is, what she was trying to get inside you to get the takedown. But in the interim of that, you've got to have some boxing skill to kind of go through all the punches that are flying at you, which she clearly didn't have against Amanda Nunes. But I think de Randamie is fairly well rounded. She's got some power. She's obviously used to the weight. Holly Holm, I think, is the biggest name besides Amanda Nunes, who knocked her out back I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago. But so she hasn't really been super active. She last fought in May, but I think the fact that Holly Holm is the dog is kind of telling you a little bit of something here. And it's almost like, who does the odds maker like here? And, you know, when you're seeing de Randamie as a favorite across the board, maybe that's kind of a tell here. I know that that's not hard hitting analysis necessarily on the fight, but de Randamie is the way I would go here.
Yeah, not bad at all. Doc, what you got?
Yeah, I've watched some of de Randamie's fights, and I'm impressed with what I see. She's very precise, and she hits hard. Her only loss in the UFC was to Amanda Nunes, which is honestly, it's really not that bad. That's just, I mean, who hasn't Amanda knocked out? You know, the way I look at Holly Holm is this. I was on Holly Holm against Ronda Rousey because I knew she was a bad matchup for Ronda Rousey. Now, when she fought well-rounded MMA gal and God, what's her name? Miesha Tate. Miesha Tate. She had the fight won for the most part, but Miesha Tate got the choke in and didn't let go, and that was it. Then she goes against one of my favorite fighters, Shevchenko, and gets absolutely worked. I think this is a bad fight for Holly Holm. Randamie is not outstanding on the ground, but I know she is a blue belt in jiu-jitsu. She's not really much of a volume striker, but she's more precise and powerful. And I think that, man, I just think this is a bad matchup for Holly Holm. I think Holly Holm is a great boxer, and I think that when it comes to boxing, I think she's fantastic. But when it comes to all-around MMA game, Muay Thai, if Randamie gets her in the clinch, man, Holly's in trouble. Holly's in deep trouble if Randamie gets those knees on her. And I just think that Randamie, Wes, do you know off the top of your head, Randamie's Muay Thai record's what? Like, she's undefeated.
Yeah, I believe I'm kind of looking this up, actually, as you're asking me about this.
She's 43-0 or something.
Yeah. Yeah, she's got some kind of
ridiculous record.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think if like striking, I think it's kind of even, but if it goes to the ground, I think Randamie has like just a little bit more of an advantage. And then in the clinch, man, Randamie's just better. I just think this fight, like Wes said, the line is very telling. And for me, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait a little bit to see. I'm going to eye this line, and hopefully some of the public goes in on the more recognizable name at Holly Holm, and maybe I can get lucky enough to get de Randamie at maybe minus 105 or plus 100, and then I'll be on de Randamie.
Yeah, and one of the things that I was kind of thinking about with this fight, sure, people listening to this know that Holly Holm is a Greg Jackson, Mike Winklejohn MMA fighter, part of that stable. One thing I've noticed over the years watching that stable is sometimes when you get somebody, they have a fighter that's off a loss. I mean, obviously, John Jones and ESP are excluded from this, but if you look at a lot of the fighters, they tend to have more conservative game plans off losses. And I think they're very much more defensive oriented.
Very good point.
Not necessarily fighters that are looking to push the pace necessarily. I mean, I saw what they did with someone like Clay Guida, who clearly wasn't a title contender, but I mean, we've seen Clay Guida fight enough. The dude's a maniac.
Yeah.
He goes in there with his head down and is going to go in there and bang. And if he gets knocked out, oh well. And, he's going to have constant activity. But when you saw him kind of go to Greg Jackson, he did not have near the activity. And Holly Holm is a natural, I think, counter striker and a defensive fighter. But, I watched it against Shevchenko, and she looked really defensive in that fight.
Yeah.
And I just don't know, I think it's almost like waiting for your opponent to make a mistake. And I'm not sure if that's going to necessarily serve her well here.
Agree 100%. That's a great point.
Well, there you have it. No, I agree. Home, she's kind of shown her hand in her last few fights, which what you guys pretty much said. When she's had to fight more well-rounded MMA fighters, and we've kind of said that through the development of the women's divisions. Doc, I know we've talked about it a lot with like the Nunez and Shevchenkos. They're MMA fighters, and that's why you've seen the development of the champions in these divisions. Randomie is more of a developed MMA fighter, and that's why I think she definitely has the upper hand in this fight. Now, we've seen MMA fights. Home is a great stand-up fighter. Can she pop her? Sure. Anything can happen. But if you got, to brass tacks, Randomie definitely is the favorite for a reason. I think Randomie takes this fight and should take this fight. And if it goes to the ground, definitely takes this fight. But I think she's going to use her precision and take care of business. I agree with you on this one as a whole. Well, there you have it. We took care of quite a few fights on that one. Handful of fights. Let's get to the best bets of the night. Don't have to give them all, but we'll start with you, Wes. What are your best bets of the evening? I know you don't have them lined out yet. You're waiting, but if you had to circle a few, what do you got?
Well, Durandamy for sure would be one of my best bets on the evening. Also, looking at Randy Brown in terms of just best individual fight bets. In terms of the underdogs that I probably likely take a shot on, I likely take a shot on Nover. Yeah, for sure. I will definitely take a shot there. Silva is a possibility in terms of what big dog, and by big dog, something that's 250 or above, the one that I think is the most likely to win of them. And I think there's about 2 or 3 of them to choose from here. The one that I think would be most likely to win of the big underdogs would be Jim Miller. I'm not necessarily betting it, but if I have my choice between, hey, you got to take a shot with something. Do you take a shot with Bosch? Do you take a shot with Miller? Do you take a shot with Sasaki or Nick or Lentz? Miller would be the one of the 4 I would probably take the shot with.
Yep, definitely. Doc, what do you got for your best bets?
Silva. I bet him a couple of days ago at plus 124. 124, I believe.
Yes, that was the text I got.
Yeah, 124. And then I took Randy Brown at minus 130, and I might take a shot on Nick Lentz. I'm not sure yet, but again, Jim Miller, I might take a shot on him too, a small. I like the Nover pick by Wes. I think that's solid. But right as of now, my best bets are Anderson Silva and Randy Brown.
Yeah, I'm looking at Randy Brown. I'm going to jump on that train for sure. Definitely jumping on the Anderson Silva train. I've been on that train, like I said, since Monday at about 7 a.m. Pacific time. I will be on Randomie, like her a lot, as I've looked into that one. And then I'm looking into Willis. I want to see a little more there. Looking into Brooks, that's more of a coin toss. I'll probably stay off. I like Nover as a dog. I think he's a very live dog. I wanted to mention something. If you have the crazies to take Bosch, and I mean crazies to take Bosch, get real crazy and take him to win by knockout because he's not winning by decision.
Agreed.
So if you're going to do it, take him to win by knockout so you get even more bang for your buck. If you're that crazy to do it to begin with. That's
Agreed.
all I'm going to throw.
Agreed.
Just going to throw that.
I'll be on Durandamy, but I don't know. I'm just going to wait on the money to come in on Holly because Wes, do you think the money's going to come in on Holly towards the weekend?
I think a little bit. I mean, I don't think it's going to be something like an avalanche where she all of a sudden becomes like $1.50, $1.60.
No,
I would love to see that, but I could see it kind of flip-flopping. It looks like there's probably more money on her right now, so I think maybe some sharper guys, and I hate that term because I think it's overused, but I think some of the sharper guys seem to like Durandamy in this fight, and I'm waiting to see the perception and as more media come out, and it just to me doesn't seem like Holly's really excited for this.
I agree.
For this new weight class, and I just think Durandamy's probably thinking, hell, I get to main event a pay-per-view and I can get a title here. You
Yeah.
know, I think she is super stoked for this.
Yeah, no doubt.
You'd think the first fight in Brooklyn at the Barclays, first title at the 145, you think you'd be pumped, want to promote the crap out of this. And yeah.
Yeah, one thing I'm interested in hearing your guys' thoughts too is just how you think the show is going to do. I don't think that this is going to do very well on pay-per-view at all. I just, coming off, and I was critical, even though I felt that the Houston show ended up being a really good show and some good fights. The fact that they didn't really have a star necessarily on the show.
Yeah.
You know, when you're in the Super Bowl market in Houston and you've got a bunch of ball players and celebrities and media types there that might be looking for something to do Saturday night before they go out and do whatever for entertainment. And, you know, it was just really disappointing. And I think you're looking at, I mean, the volume of shows, which I'm always critical of, they're not going to stop because the new investors want to make their money and get their money back. So they're going to run as many shows as they can and keep costs low. And, you know, if that means Bellator, like we were talking about Bader earlier, and also Lorenz Larkin, if that means these guys are going to get more offers, they're going to let them go unless they see, you know, unless they're, you know, really total main event guys. So I don't know how many buys this is going to do. I can't seeing it break 250, you know, even though it's in Brooklyn in a major market, first fight at the Barclays Center. I think that they're going to have some trouble with this fight. I can't see it doing very well. I mean, we're into the sport and betting on it and into the contests and all that stuff, but you know, I don't see a lot of casuals really going for this fight and really buying into this. Whereas maybe, you know, if you get to Cornwall in April, I think that's kind of the next big on pay-per-view where I think that would draw some interest.
Wes, yeah, I agree with you. For me, when I first looked at this card, it was kind of a blah card for me. And I think a lot of people felt that way. And I was just talking about that. But as I look more into the card, I really like it. I think there's a lot of interesting fights. So for the hardcore MMA people like myself and you two, I think this is a great card. But for the average MMA guy, I think this is probably like the pay-per-view you don't buy.
Yeah, this is definitely not worth the $60 or whatever for the casual fan at all. This is the fight like when Dawk. This is like when you and I talk about the free card that you don't know the names. Watch it because it'll be entertaining. Like last week in West for people. This is good. This will be entertaining because, like you said, the more you looked into it, yeah, for the degenerates that love the fight game, we can find stuff to enjoy about this fight card. But the average fan's going to look at this and go, "Wait, Holly Holmes headlining a pay-per-view? What is this all about?" It's just not appealing. It really isn't, and I doubt it does well, Wes. I can't see it doing well. You never know, but you know, there's been stories everywhere. You guys have seen them. They're going to struggle this year. With Ronda's done pretty much. Connor's out for pretty much the whole year. I'm looking at the next pay-per-view. It's 209s in March, headlined by Woodley Thompson. Then the next pay-per-view is April 8th. 210 is Cormier Johnson 2. And then May 13th, 211s, Miocic Dos Santos 2. Really, they're good fights, but they're not big names. So you got to think about it outside of the big fans. They're still not grabbing the headlines right off. They're not popping. So I don't know. They're either going to have – and they already cut down on total events. I think they only said it's like 33 events this year, which is a big start. But that's a good point, Wes. Good point.
Yeah, it's just going to be tough, I think. This is going to be a tough year because, I mean, Connor, is not going to want to fight. I mean, and he's kind of come out and said, you know what, I'm not going to be the company guy anymore. I want some points. I want a stake in this thing. And he's been very, demanding, and I think somewhat justifiably so. I mean, he's your biggest money maker. I mean, he's not going to be like the typical other guys that are just happy to be there. He's like, I'm bringing revenue into this company, and I want a stake in this thing. So I think it's really hard. I mean, and they're I think going to have to try to create some stars, and I think they're trying to do that. I mean, now you got to obviously protect them and book them smartly, where they can get some wins and get a little bit of fire up the ass in terms of the promotional thing. But I mean, their star making, I think, is really going to be put to the test here, and I think in some regards they haven't succeeded upon that. And I think that you got to try to get new talent and try to work different angles. But yeah, I think this is going to be a tough year because you don't necessarily have Connor to save you.
It's true. Very true.
Well, we got a good fight card this weekend, and if you don't pay for that, next weekend you got a free fight card on I don't even know what channel it's on, but it'll be in Halifax, Canada, UFC Fight Night, Sunday, February 19th, Lewis versus Brown. For those of you that
Hector Lombard.
Those of you that want the free fight card, I don't even know why it's not even on FS1. Should have known that's what it's usually on FS1 Sunday night. Yeah, you got Lewis, Brown, Hendricks, Lombard. A lot of good fights. We'll talk about that at a later date and time like normal, but it's a full fight card. Yeah, there's a lot of little names like we talk about all the time, but good stuff there. Any last words before we call it a day, Wes?
Well, first of all, thank you guys for having me on here. I've very much enjoyed talking with you and at least putting voices and faces with Twitter handles here. And even though mine is just a picture because my camera's messed up. But
it's a great pick. It's a great pick, Wes.
Well, I appreciate that. Yeah, it was a lot of good fun talking fights and kind of hearing other people's perspectives in terms of maybe how they look at fights, because there's no one right way to look at this.
So true.
I mean, to see metrics and stuff in terms of the different stats, whether it's takedown defense or striking or jabs, connect percentage, or how active a fighter is in terms of like a punch or a punch stat. But some people look at that. Some people look at market. Some people look at, and I look at market, and then I kind of look at, okay, why is this fight taking place? What is it designed to do? Is it designed to be a title eliminator? Is it designed to get a young prospect a win? Or is it just kind of a random put together fight? I mean, because you got to think there's reasons for almost every fight that get made, and it's just kind of looking for the reason of why the fight gets made. And sometimes, and I think if you look at that might lead you to more winners than losers, at least over time, doing this sport.
Agreed.
No, definitely. Any last words, Doc?
No. Well, Wes, thanks again for coming on. Appreciate it, man. And just by the way, the next UFC event, Hector Lombard is going to house Johnny Hendricks, Big Mac.
Yeah, Johnny Hendricks has already been talking about retirement if he doesn't do well in this fight. So when a guy's talking about retirement, it's almost like he's already retired. So you're dead on with that. I'll be interested to see what the price is.
Well, we already know he's not going to make weight, so we got that under control. So we'll go from there. But again, like Doc said, I can't echo it enough. Wes, thanks for coming, man. It was awesome, very knowledgeable. We'll definitely have you on again sometime. That was a blast. Folks, check him out on Twitter at Wes Reynolds. You always know where to check out Doc at +_Vig. Doc, always a pleasure, my friend.
Thank you.
Check us out at the Sports Degens, sportsdegens.com. Again, thanks for listening, folks. UFC 208 pay-per-view Saturday night, Barclay Center. Check it out. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you guys next time.